Hi, today we will be discussing an important topic in sustainable management of biodiversity, that is conservation biology. This conservation biology will be the cornerstone of sustainable management of biodiversity. The era where we are now exhibits loss of biodiversity. In fact, to an unprecedented level the biological resources are lost, and the main threat to loss of biodiversity is human beings. They are the prime drivers for the loss of biodiversity. In fact, why they are the prime drivers of biodiversity? The main reason is the increase in population, human population. The present population is 7 billion. By 2050, what we expect is the human population will go beyond 10 billion. And also their need, the demand for their existence, material demands, that is increasing day by day, the consumerism that is increasing day by day, that all lead to loss of biodiversity. Not only that thing, human beings demand for the natural resources, for the fuel, fodder, everything is increasing, and that will definitely cause harm to the ecosystem, harm to the earth ecosystem. So such is the role played by the human beings, and we must take into account their actions and how we will proceed, how to manage the action of human beings. That is how we will discuss today the topic of conservation biology. Other drivers of biodiversity, if you take into account, that is habitat destruction, habitat modifications, climate change, invasive species, disease causing organisms, many other factors are there. But these all factors put together, they have a synergistic attitude, nature. It means that they combinedly can cause a lot of harm to the biological resources. And this synergism is very dangerous, because one factor can cause harm to the other in kind of a cyclic reaction, a kind of the action will be multiplied also. So we need to take into account these factors and understand, examine the factors individually, and we need to manage those factors to take care of the biological resources. And this, if it is led, the drivers of biodiversity, if it is led, it will lead to mass extinction, extinction of the species, extinction of the wonderful and unbelievable valuable resources. That will, it's a very dangerous thing. So mass extinction, we are moving towards mass extinction. What exactly it is? When you say extinct, an individual of a population is said to be extinct if it is not found anywhere in the world, then the particular species is extinct. If the species is called extinct in the wild, that means that nowhere else it is the species is existing, but the species or individual of that particular species is existing in captivity, then it is called as extinct in the wild. Both extinct and extinct in the wild put together is called, the organism, the species is called as globally extinct. It means that if the species are extinct and if the species is extinct in the wild, then we call that particular species as globally extinct. And another terminology that is very important as far as the local population is concerned, that is called extirpation. It means that the individuals of a particular species which is localized in a particular region, that is nowhere, it is not existing. In fact, earlier it was existing, now it is not there. So this particular phenomenon is called as extirpation. The reasons may be many, maybe human beings or natural causes also. And another terminology as far as the mass extinction is concerned, that is ecologically extinct. The particular species is ecologically extinct. When I say the species is ecologically extinct, it means that the number of individuals is so low, it is not so much, and since it is very low, the kind of impact it is going to have on the ecosystem, that will be very, very less. In that case, that particular species is called as ecologically extinct. For example, if you see a tiger population in many habitat is ecologically extinct. Why? Because the number of tiger, if you see, it is very, very less in certain habitats, and in that case the kind of ecological impact it is going to have, that is very, very less. So we call that particular species in certain habitat as ecologically extinct. And very important thing as far as mass extinction is concerned, we need to understand the past to understand the present. Meaning to say, the extinction that was taken place in the previous, in the geological era, that has to be taken into account to learn a lesson. As far as the geological era is concerned, the mass extinction has taken place in the 5 periods. The first and foremost period, that is Ordovician, followed by Devonian, Permian, Triassic and Cretaceous. These are the 5 periods where mass extinction has taken place. But the most important thing as far as the 5 mass extinction that has taken place in the geological past is the Permian. Way back in 250 million years ago, this Permian extinction that has taken place, and because of this reason more than 75% of land dwelling species got extinct, and believe me, more than 96% of marine species was also extinct during this period, Permian period. It is a very, very important period wherein the devastation was so much. It is definitely a point to be noted. And thereafter, the other periods, Triassic and Cretaceous, it's happened naturally. The phenomenon, if you understand carefully, the mass extinction that has taken place in the past, if you see the phenomenon, the cause for this extinction, well, it can be a natural phenomenon. Natural means the volcanic activity, earthquake activity, the change in the climate. Because of the change in the climate, there can be an increase in the sea level and many other factors. It was possible, and even there is a possibility of an asteroid impact. These are all the reasons, natural reasons, that would have led to the extinction. And of course, this kind of what you call explosive causes may not be there. It cannot be sometimes. If you see, the particular species can be extinct if it is not in a position to outcompete other individuals, other species. In that case also the species can extinct, because the competition can be for the vital resources. In that case the species can be extinct, and also there can be many other factors also that will lead to extinction. But the point here is the past extinction, whatever it has taken place, that was devoid of human action. Human beings were not so much, they were not involved in the extinction that has taken place in the geological past. But we are in the mid of a tremendous pressure, that is, I can call it as, biologists call it as 6th mass extinction. That is what is taking place now. The species loss, it is so much, it is unbelievable. This mass extinction, we are in the present era, and the topic, it is also that conservation biology is very important thing. Why? Because the mass extinction that what we are experiencing is because of human beings. The 99% of extinction of species that is taking place in the present era is because of human action, and that is the reason why the human beings should wake up to have a strategy, and that strategy is conservation biology. And as far as the extinction, if you understand, dissect the extinction between the past and the present, you will understand the basic thing, that the present extinction is having a human face. Human beings are responsible for this present extinction. Their actions, what are those actions? The population is increasing, and because of the increase in the population, the demand for the natural resources, that is also increasing, and because of the demand there is a change in the habitat, or meaning to say that there is a conversion of the land habitat to other uses, like for example agriculture, industries, urbanization, so many uses. Because of these changes, human induced changes, leads to extinction of species. And also very important factor as far as the present extinction is concerned, the kind of change, the kind of extinction rate, that is fast, very fast. Because when you look at the past extinction, because extinction itself per se, it is a natural process. If it is a natural process, no point to concern, no point of concern, nothing to worry. But why we are bothered now? Because the past extinction, if you understand carefully, along with the extinction, immediately after that there will be speciation also. So there is a two process, one is speciation, other one is extinction. Speciation means there is a development, the new species will be formed, and this speciation process, if you look at it, is a very slow process. New species will be evolved because of mutation, because of recombination, natural process. But along with that thing, natural extinction, that is why I said there are a lot of causes, natural causes that cause extinction, both will be taken together. If you take into account the speciation process, the rate of speciation, if it is exceeds the extinction rate, that means there will not be any problem. But in the present stage, if you look at it, the sixth mass extinction driven by the human action, if you look at it, the rate of speciation is lesser than the extinction rate. The extinction rate, if you look at it now, it is 100 to 1000 times greater than the background extinction rate. That extinction rate which was found earlier, it is 100 to 1000 times. That is the reason why the present extinction is very dangerous. We will be losing the valuable resources, and that is the reason why we need to take the steps to manage, to counteract the human action, to develop certain strategies to prevent the extinction. And that strategy, if you point blankly say, that is an important strategy, that is conservation biology. What exactly the conservation biology is? It is a scientific discipline that draws on diverse fields to carry out research on biological diversity, identify the threats to biodiversity, and play an active role in biodiversity conservation. This is what conservation biology means. The basic purpose of conservation biology is to reduce the loss of biological diversity, to reduce the threats, to identify the threats and reduce the threats, and definitely play a scientific and proactive role in biodiversity conservation. That is what conservation biology is. And this exactly, if you look at it, it was born not earlier, it was just between 1970s and 1980s this particular discipline took shape. And this discipline took shape how? Because of the environmental movement, because of deep ecology movement, because of the awareness people add on the biological resources. People add a lot of awareness about environmental crisis, environmental pollution, environmental degradation, and this environmental movement drove to the formation of this particular discipline, that is conservation biology. The main goals of this conservation biology, the first and foremost goals is documentation of biodiversity. We need to understand the species diversity. We need to understand how many species are there, where they are, and how they are, and what are the reasons for the formation or evolution of the particular species. We need to understand the place, we need to understand the threat, we need to understand how that threat is occurring, and we need to understand how that threat is to be managed. For that reason, documentation of biodiversity is essential. That is the first and foremost goal of a conservation biologist. And second important goal is we need to understand and analyze the human impacts, anthropogenic impacts on species, communities and ecosystems. Only we understand the impacts, then only we can understand that how best the strategies, how best the scientific principles be adopted to manage the biological resources efficiently, effectively. That is the second goal of conservation biology. The third important thing is development of practical strategies. Practical, the strategy should be very practical, to be location specific, region specific. Globally also we need to have a strategy to prevent extinction, no more loss of species, because this species what we had, it has been a lot of evolution, lot of years have been passed. For a species to form, it has taken thousands of years. We do not have any right to remove that particular species from the earth, and that is a strategy, that is a very important goal of conservation biology. And this particular conservation biology, when you look at it, there is a scientific basis for this thing. There was a need for development of a new biology, new field of study to prevent the extinction of biological resources. People thought that why not applied sciences, can't they help? Applied sciences, what I mean to say is that the applied sciences like agriculture, forestry, wildlife management, there are so many fields are there, wildlife management, forestry, and also if you see there is a community education, there are many applied sciences are there, which the main purpose of that applied sciences is development of the humanity. And these applied sciences, by whatever may be the reason, they were not in a position to comprehend the loss of biological diversity. They do not have the power to reduce the loss of biodiversity. They do not have the technique, they do not have the theoretical basis, they were lacking it. So, that is the reason why I said they were lacking this power to reduce this loss of biological diversity. So, in that case they wanted to find out the way out, and what is that way? They wanted to find out an amalgamation of the basic sciences and applied sciences. The basic sciences like economics, ecology, genetics, evolutionary biology and so on and so forth. Many basic sciences, they can provide the theoretical framework, and that theoretical framework can be used by the applied field, applied sciences, and because of this amalgamation, because of the union of both basic sciences and applied sciences, we will be in a position to develop a strategy, and that strategy, by adopting that strategy efficiently and effectively, we can reduce the loss of biological diversity. And this interaction led to the formation that forms the basis for conservation biology. And when I say many disciplines, many sciences were involved in the development of this conservation biology, nothing to say that how important the field is. We can say, in other words, that the nature of conservation biology is interdisciplinary. Many fields, many disciplines have contributed for the development of conservation biology, and I can take many examples, but for this particular discussion I will take one example, that is the Brazilian program. It is a Brazilian government had a program for conservation of sea turtles. Sea turtles is a very, very important marine organism that was there all along the coast of Brazil, but this particular sea turtle organism, the species, if you look at it, the population reduced drastically. Believe me, it was less than 1%. The population reduced so much so that the government, the people who were there and the world over, they thought that what is the reason? They need to develop a program, and that led to a lot of understanding. They wanted to know what exactly the sea turtle is, what is the biology of that organism, what is the physiology of that organism, and why and how the egg is laid, where it is laid, how it is moving, what is the migration pattern, so on and so forth of sea turtles need to be examined. For that thing, the government started a program, and that program, what was the basic thing? They wanted to understand the biology. So, the first and foremost, the discipline that is involved in conservation biology is a biologist. They wanted to understand that how sea turtles are laying the eggs, how it is migrating, where it is moving. So, all the informations, it is a project called Tamar project, and in that project first 2 years they studied only this aspect. They studied the physiology aspect, they studied every aspect of the sea turtles, and they were in a position to find out the biology, they were in position to find out the weak points, and also by close examination of the people living in the coastal region, and also definitely the people in the coastal region, their livelihood will be on the fish or other marine organisms. They examined and they came to know that these sea turtles, adult and also the eggs, they have been harvested by the fishermen. These sea turtles are threatened by what? By construction activity that is taking place in the coastal region. Construction meaning to say construction of a resort, that is also threatening the population, sea turtles. You can examine, if you examine, it will be very interesting. The point, if a building resort is constructed in the coastal region, and because of the construction of the resort, what happens? Because of the shadow, the temperature, the surface temperature in that region is reduced, and that influences the sex behavior or the sexuality, or even you can say the sex ratio of sea turtles, that is influenced. So, whatever the human action that has taken place in the coastal region started affecting the sea turtles, and also the mining activity, and also the fishing activity. Even the fishing activity also started causing harm to the sea turtles, and there are many factors, and they found out the factors. These are the factors. Because of these factors, the sea turtle population was reduced. So, now they know the biology, they know the causes of the problem exactly, and they wanted to develop a strategy, and the strategy was a legislation, an act of parliament, Brazilian parliament I mean. So, they went for policy decisions. So, they developed an act, they formulated an act and implemented that particular act. So, by that way what I wanted to say is that biology the social part of the human beings, livelihood part, the population, everything, and also the legislation, economics, everything will be part of a program. And this Brazilian program was successful, and by this example I stressed a point that this conservation biology or the action of the conservation biologist is interdisciplinary in nature. It is a very, very vital thing, because this conservation biology, we need to understand many disciplines, and for the success of conservation biologists, their knowledge, their action, everything should be proactive. And looking at the principles of conservation biology, the first and foremost important principle, because these principles will be the guiding principles. When I say guiding principle, this conservation biology has certain norms. It is driven by certain principles, and that principle definitely it is having a scientific basis. Then the first and foremost principle as far as the conservation biology is concerned, that is preservation of species and biological communities. You know, the biodiversity, when you look at it, it can be studied at various levels: species diversity, genetic diversity, and ecosystem diversity. The levels, there are three: species. Species means all the species that is existing on the earth, that is species diversity. When you look at the genetic diversity, that is the variation, the genetic variation that is present in the population within a species, that is genetic diversity, that is genetic variation, that is very, very important. For an agrobiodiversity, for example, if you look at it, the genetic variation is very, very important for plant breeding activity. Only when you have a genetic variation, then only we can go for any plant breeding activity, or development of a new variety is possible. So genetic diversity is essential component, and that has to be preserved. And third important thing is the biological community. When I say biological community, that indirectly says about ecosystem diversity, and community means it's many species will be there, and both will be all species will be interacting, and that is an essential component of ecosystem diversity. And this ecosystem diversity, that signifies actions of many species, that species all will be acting together, and there will be a close interaction, and that interaction signifies what? It signifies an important factor that all species are adaptable or adapted to the local condition. They are adapted to the environmental condition. They are adaptable to coexist. So that is a significant point as far as the biological communities are concerned. So by understanding the species diversity, genetic diversity, and ecosystem diversity, we can understand how important the species are for the human beings. And the first principle of conservation biology is to preserve these three levels of diversity. And second important principle is prevention of untimely extinction of species. I said that extinction, mass extinction, the past 5 extinction were natural process. Fine, that is a natural process, it is a natural phenomenon, fine. But what is now that is taking place, that is 6th mass extinction, this has been driven by the human action. This is untimely. The kind of extinction rate I talked about is 100 to 1000 times. It is unbelievable, it is not required. It should be definitely stopped, and this kind of untimely extinction of species should be prevented at any cost, and that is the second principle of conservation biology. And third important principle of conservation biology is maintenance of ecological complexity. Ecological complexity is a very, very essential phenomenon for a species. Any species, for example, if you take it in an ecosystem, that species is dependent on other species. For example, a particular plant species has to pollinate, and it's having certain unique phenomenon, it's a unique feature. So what happened, it is dependent on a particular pollinator, a particular bird. So this particular plant species will be pollinating only when there is a presence of a pollinator, unique pollinator. So this is possible only in the natural habitat, and this is what ecological complexity, and that ecological complexity has to be maintained at any cost. And another important factor is, see, the species are evolving. Every now and then a new species will be evolved, and this is a process, and this process has to continue. And for that thing, conservation biology is very, very important thing. We need to understand the species existence. We need to respect their values, because the kind of values the biodiversity has, it is enormous. We need to respect it, and every species is having intrinsic values, and it's very, very essential point. And this conservation biology if you see, they used to say it is a crisis discipline. Why? You know, this conservation biologists provide lot of advice, counseling and decisions. They take a lot of decisions also, and that forms an important input for the policy makers. The kind of decisions they are taking, you know, they are limited by the time factor. They are under time pressure, and the decision making also sometimes they give the decisions because without proper investigation, because of the time factor. That is the reason, very important reason, that is this conservation biologists need a thorough scientific investigations. Then only their decisions will be also very valid. Next important thing, the challenges. This conservation biologist faces lot of challenges. Lot of challenges because kind of activity, because for example a species, they have to concentrate on the keystone species, they have to concentrate on the keystone resources, they have to concentrate on every species, endangered species or, you know, ecologically extinct species. So the kind of action as far as the species diversity is concerned, for example, I mean, so it is enormous, it is every now and then it is increasing. So they need to develop a new strategies for that particular thing. And if you put it very point blankly, there is an urgency for conservation biology. We need to develop a strategy at any cost, because the extinction, we are in the 6th mass extinction, believe me, and due to whatever the reason, human beings definitely they are the prime reasons. We need to develop a strategy. That is what I wanted to say in this particular thing. And the extinction what we are talking about is because of human beings. So definitely the role the human beings to play in this conservation biology is very unique, and it is it should be effective. And coming to this particular aspect of species diversity and the conservation biology, I was talking about the role played by the keystone species also, keystone resources, and at all levels of biodiversity, species diversity, genetic diversity, ecosystem diversity, the conservation biologists have a prime role. For finding a new species also, this conservation biologists have a very important role to play. And also if you look at it, once they find out a new species, their actions, whether they are threatened or whether they are vulnerable, that also has to be studied properly by this conservation biologist. So the task is enormous for the conservation biologist. The challenges are ever increasing, but still, because this conservation biology has taken up all the possible scientific inputs from other disciplines, definitely it will be a great success, and this conservation biologist has have a long way to go to control the loss of biological resources. Thank you.